My name is Lee Mercer, and I was 29 when my brother told the ICU nurse to stop calling our mother family. He said it with his visitor badge, still clipped to his shirt. She lied for 3 decades, Colin said, looking through the glass at my mother with a tube in her throat. Let the state handle her. I am done pretending she is some saint. The nurse froze with one hand on the curtain. My mother's blood pressure monitor kept beeping. I remember that sound because it was the only thing in the room that did not flinch. 3 hours earlier, Mom had collapsed in the lobby of the main vital records office. She had a folder in her purse, a number ticket in her hand, and a stroke working its way through the left side of her brain. She was there to correct a record she had hidden from me my whole life. Colin knew that before I did. He walked out of the ICU, and the nurse handed me my mother's coat in a clear plastic hospital bag. I reached into the inside pocket because Mom always kept her reading glasses there. Instead, I found a flat brass key taped to a library card and a folded note written in her shaky block letters. Lee, if I cannot speak, go to locker 42 at Harbor Public Library. Ask Mrs. Vale for the orange file. The name they used is not the name that belongs to you. Do not sign anything Colin brings you. Under that, in smaller writing, Mom had added one sentence. They paid twice for your life and let you pay the bill. If your brother told you your mother was a liar while she was lying helpless in a hospital bed, what would you do first? Tell me in the comments, because I sat there for 10 minutes with that note in my hand and did not even know what to call myself. I was Lee Mercer. I worked in records support at Casco Community College. I rented the downstairs half of a duplex. I had $41,870 in student loans, a 7-year-old Toyota, and a mother who kept every grocery receipt in envelopes by month. My father, Thomas Mercer, had died of pancreatic cancer when I was 17. My older brother Colin was 34, polished, impatient, and always the one people thought had escaped us. He worked for Ashford Family Office in Portland, which sounded boring until you understood what it meant. The Ashfords were old Maine money. Private schools, medical wings, museum boards, scholarships with names on plaques. Colin managed donor files and event logistics for them. He wore suits to work and told me I should stop being emotional about paperwork. Mom had been a librarian for 31 years. Quiet, careful, the kind of woman who returned a lost glove to a child because she had written the classroom number on a sticky note the week before. She was not dramatic. She did not invent conspiracies. She did not collapse at vital records with a secret note in her pocket unless something had pushed her there. So after Colin left, I did not chase him. I sat by Mom's bed until visiting hours ended. I held her hand. Her fingers were cold, but when I said, "I found the key," her eyelids twitched. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was my imagination. But I leaned close and whispered, "I will not sign anything." The twitch happened again. The next morning, March 6, 2026, I drove to Harbor Public Library before it opened. Mrs. Vale was already there because librarians know when a locked building needs a person inside it. She was 70 if she was a day, with silver hair, square glasses, and a look on her face that told me she had been expecting me. "Lee," she said, "your mother called me last week." I held out the key. Mrs. Vale locked the front door behind me and led me past the children's room, past the public computers, and down a short hallway to the staff lockers. Locker 42 was not a metal locker. It was an old archive cabinet built into the wall, with brass numbers and a keyhole worn smooth from decades of use. My hand shook so hard I missed the keyhole twice. Inside was an orange legal folder, a small white box, and a blue spiral notebook with my mother's handwriting on the cover. For Lee, read in order, do not skip ahead. I almost laughed at that, because even in the middle of a family collapse, Mom still believed in orderly research. The first page was a letter. "Sweetheart, I should have told you when you were 18. I was afraid the truth would make you feel unwanted. That was my mistake. You were wanted. You were wanted by me and by your father every day of your life. What happened before we brought you home was not your fault. What happened after Andrew Ashford died was not your fault either. They counted on you never knowing records had two sides. Andrew Ashford. I knew that name. Everyone in Maine knew that name. Andrew Ashford had been the oldest son of the Ashford family, a volunteer firefighter, and the face on the bronze plaque at the Ashford First Responders Scholarship Center. He had died in 1998, 3 weeks before I was born, in a warehouse fire near South Portland. The next document was a birth record. Not mine. At least, not the one I had seen before. This one said, Child, female infant Reed. Mother, Marisol Reed. Father acknowledged by affidavit, Andrew Hale Ashford. Date of birth, April 11, 1998. Hospital, Mercy Harbor Medical Center. In the corner was a hospital footprint card, 2 tiny black smudges. Under the card, inside the white box, was a plastic hospital bracelet so small it looked fake. Baby Reed. The birthday was mine. The hospital was the one on my birth certificate, but my birth certificate said Leah Ann Mercer, child of Thomas Mercer and Elaine Mercer. My mother had always told me the old record was amended because she and Dad had not chosen my first name until the next day. I believed her because children believe the adults who pack their lunches. Under the bracelet was a notarized adoption consent. Marisol Reed, 19 years old, surrendering an infant girl to Thomas and Elaine Mercer. The consent was dated April 16, 1998. 5 days after my birth. There was also a photocopy of a paternity affidavit signed by Andrew Ashford in February 1998, 2 months before I was born and 3 weeks before he died. The affidavit named Marisol Reed's unborn child as his biological child and made the child eligible for any descendant benefits under family trusts or scholarship funds. Then there was a letter from the Ashford family's attorney, dated May 1998. Mrs. Reed has accepted private settlement funds and agrees not to make future claims against the Ashford family, Ashford Charitable Trust, or the Andrew H. Ashford Memorial Education Fund on behalf of the minor child. The letter was not signed by Marisol. It was signed by a man named Graham Pike, trustee. My mother had circled one sentence in red. No court approval attached for minor child's waiver. That was the first paper that made the room feel smaller. An adult had signed away a baby's rights with no court approval. My rights. I sat on the floor of the library archive room with that folder across my knees and felt my life tilt sideways. Mrs. Vale did not speak. She just brought me a cup of coffee and a paper cup and sat in the doorway like a guard. The notebook came next. Mom had written a timeline. April 1998. Andrew dies before Leah is born. April 1998. Marisol gives birth, overwhelmed, threatened by Ashford lawyer. April 1998. Thomas and I bring Leah home legally through private adoption. June 1998. Ashford Memorial Education Fund opened. 1999 to 2016. Annual trust statements list eligible biological descendant, female minor, initials LR. 2016. Trust pays first award to Elise Ashford. 2017. Lee starts community college, denied needs scholarship due existing private award. 2018 to 2025. Elise receives reimbursements under Andrew's descendant education rider. 2024. Thomas's old safe file found in basement. 2025. Elaine contacts Vital Records. 2026. Colin hired by Ashford office, then pressure begins. I read the line about my student aid 3 times. Denied due existing private award. When I started at Casco Community College in 2017, I had applied for every scholarship the financial aid office gave me. One application came back with a strange note, ineligible due to private award already reported. The counselor told me it was probably a reporting error, but the semester deadline was close, so I took loans. I worked nights at a grocery store and weekends at a copy shop. I paid interest while Elise Ashford, whoever she was, apparently used a fund tied to my biological father. They paid twice for your life and let you pay the bill. The next page was tucked into a plastic sleeve behind the timeline. It was a Casco Community College Financial Aid Override Report from 2017. My social security number was partly redacted, but enough digits showed for me to know it was mine. Next to it was a code I recognized from work. Outside education benefit, donor restricted, active. Student name on the external benefit, Elise A. Whitcomb Ashford. My number, her name. I stopped breathing for a second. Elise Ashford was not some stranger. She was the Ashford granddaughter everyone saw in donor newsletters. She had gone to Colby, then a private public policy master's program, then joined the board of the Andrew H. Ashford Memorial Education Fund at 28. She gave speeches about opportunity for working families while my mother packed leftover soup into jars because I could not afford campus meals. The orange folder held more. Bank distribution, sheets from Northeast Harbor Trust. Tuition reimbursements. Board minutes. A 2021 email from Graham Pike to Colin Mercer. Colin, your mother has been asking for archived adoption records. Please keep this calm. The family handled the Reed matter before the child could crawl. No one benefits from digging now. Colin's reply was one line. I can keep Lee from signing anything if you keep my name out of it. I knew my brother could be selfish. I did not know he could be purchased in complete sentences. By then my phone had buzzed 8 times, 6 calls from Colin, 2 texts. Where are you? Hospital needs decisions. Do not listen to Mom's old librarian friend. I took screenshots of all of them. Then I saw the attachment he had sent by email. It was a document titled Family Medical Coordination and Records Privacy Release. It would let him manage Mom's hospital information, her financial records, and any pending legacy correction matters. The signature line for me was already highlighted. I remembered Mom's note. Do not sign anything Colin brings you. I forwarded the email to myself, printed it from the library office, and put the printout in my bag. Mrs. Vale finally spoke. Your mother wanted you to call Nora Beltran. Nora was a legal aid attorney who used the library's meeting room twice a month for free tenant clinics. I had seen her help people read eviction papers. I had never imagined I would need her for my own birth certificate. She knows some of it, Mrs. Vale said. Not all. Elaine was afraid to put everything in email. I drove from the library to Nora's office with the orange folder on the passenger seat. Every red light felt too long. I kept looking in the rearview mirror because the source story version of this would have had someone following me. But this was my life, and the worst thing following me was my brother's text tone. Nora Beltran read fast. She did not gasp. She did not say poor thing. She put sticky tabs on the documents and asked practical questions. Did you ever consent to Elise Ashford using your identifying information? No. Did you know Andrew Ashford was your biological father? No. Did your mother ever ask you to waive a trust, scholarship, estate, or education benefit? No. Did Colin have access to your social security number? He helped Mom fill out FAFSA paperwork once because Dad was sick and I was working. I was 17. Nora's jaw tightened at that. Then we move carefully, she said. This is identity misuse, charitable fund diversion, and possibly trust fraud. But we do not run into the Ashford office shouting. We get original records. That sentence saved me. I wanted to confront Colin. I wanted to drive to the Ashford building and throw the folder at their glass doors. Nora made me slow down. The first place we went was Casco Community College, my own workplace. I had access to general records, but not my own protected financial aid file. Nora requested it properly, with my written consent and a copy of my license. The financial aid director, Mr. Han, met us in a small conference room beside the registrar's office. I had worked with him for 3 years. He looked embarrassed before the printer even stopped running. "Lee," he said, "I need you to understand this was reported through an outside donor clearinghouse. Our office did not assign it." "Show me." He slid the page across the table. External award flag, Andrew H. Ashford Memorial Education Fund. Award holder SSN, ending 4431. Award holder DOB, 4/11/1998. Award holder name in donor file, Elise Ashford. Impact on aid package, need-based community scholarship reduced. That was my social security number, my date of birth, her name. The flag appeared in 2017, 2018, and 2019. Each time I had been treated as if private education money was already available to me. Each time I borrowed more. Mr. Han pulled another page. "There is also a donor clearinghouse confirmation contact from 2020, he said. "Someone called to verify that the award holder would not be using Casco Community College funds anymore." "Who called?" He turned the page. Caller identified as Colin Mercer, family liaison. For a moment, the room went gray around the edges. Colin had not just known. Colin had helped keep the false flag active after I was already drowning in loans. Nora put one hand flat on the table. "Print certified copies," she said, "and preserve the call log." Mr. Han nodded, already doing it. That was when my own college file stopped looking like a clerical mistake. It had treated Elise's award as mine, and my brother had called as a family liaison to keep the record clean. The next piece came from a place I did not expect, my father's basement. Mom's house was locked, but I had a key. Colin's car was not in the driveway. I went in with Nora because she told me never to search alone once money people were involved. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and old books. Mom's reading chair still had a blanket folded over the arm. I did not let myself look at it for too long. In the basement, behind the Christmas tubs, was Dad's old fireproof box. I knew it because I used to think it held treasure. The combination was my birthday. Inside were tax returns, insurance papers, and a sealed envelope marked Lee, after Elaine tells her. Dad had died before Mom found courage, but he had left me his version. The envelope held 3 things: a handwritten letter, a cassette tape, and a copy of a 1998 bank receipt. Nora found an old cassette player in Mom's craft cabinet because my mother did not throw away technology until it apologized. We sat at the kitchen table and pressed play. My father's voice came through weak and scratchy. "This is Thomas Mercer. June 18, 1998. I am recording this because Graham Pike from the Ashford family came by the house today. He said if Elaine and I talk about Andrew, Marisol, or the baby, the adoption could be challenged. He offered us $25,000 as a support payment and said the Ashfords would consider the matter closed." There was a pause. I could hear Dad breathing. "We did not take it. I told him Lee is not a matter. She is our daughter." Elaine cried after he left. "I am putting the unsigned check copy and his card in this box in case Lee ever needs proof." The tape clicked. I pressed my hand over my mouth. Dad had been gone 12 years, and still he was sitting at the kitchen table with me, calm and stubborn, refusing to sell me. The bank receipt showed a cashier's check from Ashford Charitable Trust to Thomas and Elaine Mercer for $25,000. Across the copy, in Dad's handwriting, were 3 words. "Returned unopened, 6/1998. That paper did something different than the others. It did not prove what they stole. It proved what my parents refused to take. That mattered because the Ashfords had spent years painting Mom as a liar and opportunist. Dad's tape showed the first money offer came from them. By Friday, Mom was still unconscious, but stable. The neurologist said her speech might return slowly if the swelling improved. I sat with her every night and read pieces of the folder out loud, not because I knew she could hear me, but because I wanted the truth to enter the room where Colin had tried to leave her alone. On Saturday, Colin came back. He walked into the ICU wearing a navy suit and a face that had practiced concern in a mirror. "Lee," he said softly, "you look exhausted. Do not start." He glanced at the nurse, then lowered his voice. "Mom made a mess before she got sick. You do not understand the people she was bothering." "The Ashfords." His expression changed for half a second. Not fear, irritation, like I had opened a drawer I was too short to reach. "They are not villains," he said. "They handled a complicated situation a long time ago." There it was, the phrase from Graham Pike's email, polished for family use. "Handled before I could crawl." Colin's mouth went tight. That line sounds ugly out of context. What is the nice context for using my social security number under Elise Ashford's name? He looked at Mom, not at me, at Mom. She should have left it alone. She is lying in a hospital bed because she tried to fix it. She is lying in a hospital bed because she got old and stubborn. I stood up. The nurse stepped closer to the doorway. Colin took a folded document from his jacket pocket. "Sign the release. Let me handle the medical decisions and the records request. If you keep pushing, this gets expensive. You have no idea how fast attorneys can burn through people like us." People like us. He had not said that in years. I took the paper, not to sign it, but to look at it. The top page was not the privacy release he had emailed. It was a settlement acknowledgement. "I, Leanne Mercer, acknowledge no legal, financial, educational, biological, or reputational claim against Ashford Charitable Trust, Andrew H. Ashford Memorial Education Fund, Ashford Family Office, Elise Ashford, or related parties. In exchange, they would pay $30,000 toward my student loans. $30,000 to erase 29 years. This is insulting," I said. Colin's voice dropped. "It is generous. The Ashfords do not owe you anything. Andrew was careless, Marisol was paid, and Mom and Dad got to raise you. Everybody got what they needed." "I did not." "You got a family." "I got loans because Elise used my award flag." Elise had the platform to use that education properly. That sentence was so honest, it almost knocked the air out of me. I looked at my mother. Her eyelids did not move. Her hand lay open on the blanket. "Leave," I said. Colin leaned in. "This was settled before you could crawl," he whispered. "Do not embarrass yourself trying to become an Ashford now." I did not yell. I pressed the nurse call button. "My brother is not authorized to be in this room." The nurse came in with hospital security behind her. Colin laughed once, sharp and mean, but he left. 10 minutes later, Nora called. "Do you still have the document he brought?" "Yes." "Good. Do not touch it more than necessary. Scan it. That document is the midpoint." She was right. Until then, I thought Colin was ashamed and selfish. The settlement paper proved the Ashfords were still actively trying to shut me down. The signature block had been prepared before I even asked for a review. They had a plan for my silence ready in his jacket. On Monday, Nora filed 3 requests at once. One went to the Maine Attorney General's Charitable Trusts Division because the Ashford Fund was a charitable education fund, not a private family piggy bank. One went to Vital Records to preserve and review my original and amended birth records. One went to the Donor Clearinghouse system that reported outside awards to colleges. By Wednesday, things started moving faster than rich people like. A compliance examiner named Denise Park called Nora. I was on speaker. "We have prior flags on the Ashford Memorial Fund," Denise said. "Nothing that rose to enforcement. Missing beneficiary documentation, unusual reimbursements. One board member receiving education reimbursements for a relative while also voting on eligibility rules." "Elise Ashford," Nora said. "Yes." Denise paused. "If your client is the biological descendant tied to the original eligibility file, this is not only a records correction. It changes every distribution from 2016 forward." The next day, a retired nurse named Helen Sato called me. She had been a maternity nurse at Mercy Harbor in 1998. Mrs. Vale found her number in my mother's notebook, but Helen had ignored Mom's calls because she was afraid. When the Attorney General's office contacted her, she decided she was more afraid of dying with the truth in her throat. We met in a diner near Freeport. Helen was 76, tiny, with careful hands and eyes that never stayed still. "Your mother, Elaine, was not the problem," she said before I even ordered coffee. "I want that clear." "Then who was?" "Graham Pike, the Ashford trustee." Helen told us that Marisol Reed had given birth alone. Andrew Ashford was dead. The Ashford family did not want a public paternity fight while they were turning Andrew into a hero. Graham Pike came to the hospital with private security and a lawyer. He pressured Marisol to sign adoption papers and a settlement letter while she was still bleeding and scared. "Elaine Mercer was in the maternity ward visiting a cousin," Helen said. "She and Thomas had been waiting on an adoption placement for 2 years. A private agency connected them after Marisol said she wanted the baby placed with normal people, not the Ashfords. Elaine loved you from the first day, but Graham wanted no trace linking Andrew to you. So he changed the records." "He influenced them," Helen said carefully. "The original paternity affidavit was supposed to stay sealed but intact. Later, someone filed an amended index that made it look like the biological father field had never existed. I kept a copy because I knew it was wrong." She opened her purse and pulled out a yellowed envelope. Inside was a nurse's incident note from April 17, 1998. It said Graham Pike removed a birth file packet from the unit clerk's desk and returned it 34 minutes later. Attached was Helen's handwritten statement from the same day. That was the first living witness who could place Graham Pike inside the original file. The human kind. The kind that made every later document less confusing because it showed who touched the first file. Nora asked Helen why she had not reported it. Helen looked down at her coffee. "I was 38. I had 2 kids. Mercy Harbor was half funded by Ashford donations. Graham told me a nurse could lose her license for mishandling wealthy patient records. I believed him. I am sorry." I wanted to hate her. I could not. There was enough guilt in her voice to fill the whole diner. "You are telling it now," I said. She cried then, quietly into a paper napkin. The Ashfords responded the way people with money respond when facts start forming a line. They did not call me. They sent a letter. It came by courier to Nora's office. The letter said my claims were emotionally understandable, but legally stale. It said Andrew's family had no current obligation to revisit private arrangements made in 1998. It said any suggestion that Elise Ashford had misused funds was defamatory. It said Colin Mercer had acted only as a concerned relative trying to prevent a vulnerable woman, my mother, from reopening settled grief. Nora read it once and smiled without warmth. "They are scared," she said. That letter sounds confident. Scared people with expensive stationery still use expensive stationery. I spent that afternoon at the hospital. Mom's eyes opened for 4 seconds. She did not speak. She looked at me, then at the orange folder on the chair, and tears slid sideways into her hair. "I know," I whispered. "I know about Andrew. I know about Marisol. I know you and Dad refused the money." Her fingers moved against mine. "You did not steal me," I said. "You raised me." Her lips trembled, but no sound came out. That was the first time I understood there were 2 kinds of proof. The papers were going to prove my name, but my mother needed to hear that the truth had not erased hers. The official review was scheduled for March 24, 2026, at the Maine Attorney General's Portland office. Not a courtroom, not a dramatic gala. A state conference room with bad coffee, gray carpet, a projector, and enough chairs for people who thought records were more dangerous than shouting. If you are still listening, share this with someone who keeps old documents because the right paper at the right time can change a life. And subscribe if you want stories where quiet proof does the work louder people tried to avoid. Before the hearing, Nora made me practice my timeline until I could say it without shaking. "You are not there to prove you deserve a rich family," she said. "You are there to prove a charitable fund used the wrong identity and punished you for it." That helped. I did not want to be an Ashford. I did not want their last name, their houses, their dinner invitations, or their portraits in hallways. I wanted the record corrected. I wanted my loans fixed. I wanted Colin and Elise to stop standing on money that had my birth date under it. And I wanted my mother to wake up without a lawyer using the word liar anywhere near her. The morning of the review, I wore the same black pants I wore to work and a blue sweater Mom had bought me at a thrift store. Nora told me I looked like myself, which was the point. The room already had people in it when we arrived. Denise Park, the charitable trust examiner, sat at the head of the table. Beside her were a vital records supervisor, a donor clearinghouse auditor, a Northeast Harbor Trust Bank officer, Mr. Han from my college, Helen Sato, the retired nurse, and a Mercy Harbor records manager. Across the table sat Graham Pike, older than I expected, with white hair and a tan that looked maintained by money. Elise Ashford sat beside him in a cream blazer, tapping one finger against her phone. Colin sat at the end near the door, like he wanted an escape route but did not want anyone to notice. The Ashford attorney had 3 binders. Nora had 1. Denise opened with the kind of calm voice that makes everyone sit straighter. "This is a compliance review regarding the Andrew H. Ashford Memorial Education Fund, external education award reporting, and possible beneficiary record errors involving Lee Mercer and Elise Ashford." Graham Pike interrupted before she finished. "The family objects to the word possible. These matters were settled in 1998. Denise looked at him. "Mr. Pike, you will have time to respond. Do not interrupt me again." The room went still. Nora started with the original birth record, not with emotion. Female infant Reed. Andrew Hale Ashford signed paternity affidavit. My birth date. The adoption consent. The missing court approval for any waiver of a minor's future education rights. The vital records supervisor confirmed the original paternity affidavit existed in the sealed archive. "It was not visible in the amended index," she said, "but it was not destroyed." Graham Pike said, "Administrative cleanup." Helen Sato's voice came from the other side of the table. "No, you took the file off the unit desk and brought it back changed." Graham turned slowly toward her. "I do not know this woman." Helen slid her 1998 incident note across the table. "You knew me enough to threaten my job." The Mercy Harbor records manager confirmed the note had been found in a retired employee concern file, logged but never escalated. That changed the room. Graham still looked polished, but now he looked polished under a light. Nora moved to the education fund. The Northeast Harbor Trust officer explained that Andrew's Memorial Fund had a descendant education rider, separate from general scholarships. It was small compared with Ashford money, but huge to someone like me. Tuition, books, fees, and loan reimbursement for Andrew's biological child or direct descendant. "Who was the eligible child?" Denise asked. The bank officer looked at his page. "The original eligibility memo says female child of Marisol Reed and Andrew Ashford, born April 11, 1998. "Did it say Elise Ashford?" "No." Elise stopped tapping her phone. The donor clearinghouse auditor projected a report on the wall. My social security number, my birth date, Elise's name. Reimbursements from 2016 through 2025. Total paid, $214,630. External award flags sent to 2 colleges, including Casco Community College. Mr. Han testified that those flags reduced my aid eligibility and contributed to loan borrowing. "We treated Ms. Mercer as privately funded because that is what the donor clearinghouse reported," he said. Our office had no way to know the reported student name did not match the federal identifier. Elise finally spoke. I never saw those forms. My grandfather's office handled education payments. Denise asked, did you receive the benefit? My tuition was reimbursed, yes. Did you serve on the fund board while receiving reimbursement? Elise looked at her lawyer. Graham answered for her. As a young family member, she was included for development experience. Denise wrote something down. Nora then introduced Colin's emails. Graham piked to Colin Mercer. The family handled the Reed matter before the child could crawl. Colin Mercer to Graham Pike. I can keep Lee from signing anything if you keep my name out of it. Colin stared at the table. My brother, who had called our mother a liar in the ICU, could not lift his face when his own sentence hit the wall. Denise asked him directly, Mr. Mercer, were you paid by Ashford Family Office while communicating with Mr. Pike about your sister's records? Colin cleared his throat. I was a contractor. For what service? Family liaison work. Which family? He did not answer. The bank officer supplied the answer. 3 contractor payments to Colin Mercer, totaling $38,500, marked Reed Mercer legacy containment. Legacy containment. That phrase did something to me. I had been a baby, then a student, then a woman taking bus rides to class with a granola bar for dinner. In their files, I was not a person. I was containment. I looked at Colin then. He looked older than 34, smaller too. You knew I was paying loans, I said. Nora touched my sleeve, but Denise allowed it. Colin swallowed. You always made everything harder than it had to be. By existing. By needing answers. The entitlement sentence came from Graham, not Colin. This was settled before she could crawl, he said, voice sharp now. The Mercers received a child. Marisol received consideration. The Ashford family preserved Andrew's public legacy. Everyone moved on until Elaine Mercer decided to poison her daughter against people who had done nothing but protect a name. Denise looked up. Protect a name from whom? Graham realized too late what he had said. Nora opened Dad's evidence then. The cassette recording had been digitized. My father's voice filled the state conference room. Lee is not a matter. She is our daughter. The room went silent in a different way. Records can corner a person, but a dead father refusing money can change how every witness hears the next document. Nora projected the returned cashier's check copy, $25,000, returned unopened. Then she showed Colin's settlement paper from the ICU. $30,000 toward my loans in exchange for waiving claims against everyone in the Ashford circle. This was presented while Ms. Mercer's mother was incapacitated, Nora said, by the brother receiving containment payments. The hospital nurse had signed a statement confirming. Colin brought the document into the ICU and pressured me while Mom was unable to speak. That was the document that brought everything into the present. This was not just something ugly from 1998. It was still happening in March 2026, beside my mother's hospital bed. Denise called a 10-minute break. Elise stood and walked toward me. Nora shifted, but Elise stopped a few feet away. I did not know about your loans, she said. I looked at her expensive watch, then at her face. Did you know the fund was for Andrew's biological child? She said nothing. Did you ever wonder why your reimbursements used a different social security number? Her mouth tightened. My family office handled it. That is not the same as no. Graham called her back before she could answer. When the review resumed, Denise did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Preliminary findings, she said. 1. The Andrew H. Ashford Memorial Education Fund used an incorrect beneficiary identity in donor clearinghouse reporting. 2. Reimbursements were issued to Elise Ashford without adequate eligibility support. 3. Those reports created measurable financial harm to Lee Mercer. 4. Mr. Pike and Ashford family office attempted to obtain a waiver from Ms. Mercer while material facts were concealed. 5. This division is opening a formal enforcement action. Graham's attorney objected. Denise kept reading. The fund is ordered to preserve all records. Further distributions are frozen pending corrective action. Northeast Harbor Trust will calculate restitution for diverted education benefits. The donor clearinghouse record will be corrected immediately. Vital records will initiate an amended certified record review. Casco Community College will provide a loan impact statement. Referrals will be made to the Consumer Protection Division regarding identity misuse. Elise whispered, "What does that mean for me?" Denise looked at her. "It means the money trail will be audited." Colin stood so suddenly, his chair rolled back. "This is insane," he said. "Lee does not even want to be an Ashford." "Correct," I said. Everyone looked at me. My voice was steady. I think that surprised me more than anyone. "I do not want their name. I want mine to stop being used when it benefits them and erased when it benefits them. I want my mother removed from their lives. I want my loan file corrected. I want the fund to stop pretending Elise's opportunities were charity. And I want my brother to stop calling containment family." Colin shook his head. "Mom turned you against us. Mom left me a key because you were already bought." He flinched, not much but enough. The review ended with no dramatic arrest, no shouting in the hallway, no one dragged out. Calm drama does not always look like television. Sometimes justice is a state examiner putting a freeze on a bank account, while a man who thought he controlled the story watches his lawyer stop talking. But the consequences came quickly. By April 3, the Ashford Memorial Education Fund issued a formal correction. They did not apologize at first. Rich organizations prefer record adjustment to apology. Denise Park rejected the wording and made them file again. The second version said, "The fund acknowledges that Lee Mercer was the eligible biological descendant under the Andrew H. Ashford Memorial Education Fund, and that prior external award reporting and reimbursement activity were incorrect." I printed that sentence and brought it to Mom. She was awake by then, but speech was hard. The stroke had taken some words and made her fight for others. I sat beside her and read the correction slowly. Her eyes filled. "Sorry," she whispered. "No," I said, "you are not doing that." "Should have told." "Yes," I said, "because love does not require lying about the part that hurt. You should have told me sooner, but you and Dad did not sell me. You did not steal from me. You tried to protect me and then tried to fix it." She closed her eyes. "Your father," she whispered. I heard the tape. She cried then, and I cried with her. Not loud. Just enough that the nurse brought tissues and pretended to adjust the IV so we could have dignity. The paper confirmations arrived over the next 6 weeks. First, Casco Community College corrected my aid history and sent a certified loan impact statement. It showed the outside award flags had reduced or blocked $19,400 in aid I could have received. Then Northeast Harbor Trust calculated the diverted descendant education reimbursements. With tuition, fees, books, and approved loan reimbursement, the amount tied to my eligibility was $214,630. Denise negotiated a corrective order requiring the fund to repay my existing student loans in full, refund the aid I lost, and place the remainder in a restricted education and career account under my legal name. Not Ashford. Mercer. Then Vital Records issued a corrected certified birth record. It listed Marisol Reed and Andrew Hale Ashford as biological parents in the sealed historical section. It listed Thomas Mercer and Elaine Mercer as adoptive parents on the legal parent record. For the first time, the paper told the whole truth without making one kind of parent erase the other. I thought that would make me feel split in half. It did not. It made me feel documented. The Ashford consequences were less poetic and more satisfying. Graham Pike resigned from the family office and from 3 charity boards before the Attorney General finished the enforcement action. The final order barred him from serving as trustee or officer of any Maine charitable fund for 8 years. Ashford Family Office paid a civil penalty and had to hire an outside compliance monitor. Elise Ashford stepped down from the scholarship board. Her public policy program opened an internal review of the tuition disclosures. The alumni profile calling her a self-funded advocate for first-generation students disappeared from the website in one afternoon. Colin lost his contract first. Then he lost something he cared about more, the story he told himself. His name appeared in the enforcement order as a paid intermediary who attempted to secure a waiver from an affected beneficiary during a medical crisis. No criminal charge came from that part, but the phrase followed him. People in donor compliance can read. He came to Mom's house in May after she was home and walking slowly with a cane. I saw him through the front window before he knocked. He looked thinner. He held flowers from a grocery store. Mom was in her chair with a blanket over her knees. "Do you want to see him?" I asked. She looked at the door for a long time. "Not today." So I opened the door just enough to step onto the porch. Colin looked past me. "I need to talk to Mom." She said not today. "Lee, come on." "No." He held out the flowers. I did not know Graham would use the waiver like that. "You brought it to the ICU." "I was trying to stop a fight." "You were paid to stop a record correction." His face hardened, then softened again when he realized anger would not work. "I am still your brother." That sentence used to pull me. It had pulled me through years of excusing him. He is stressed. He is practical. He shows love differently. He had always known how to make blood sound like a bill. "You were my brother when you called Mom a liar in intensive care," I said. "You were my brother when you told Graham you could keep me from signing anything. You were my brother when you watched me pay loans you knew were wrong. Being my brother did not stop you, so it will not save you." He stared at me. "You sound just like her." "Good." I closed the door. Mom was crying when I came back inside. I thought I had upset her, but she reached for my hand. "Good," she whispered. That was the moment. I needed more than the money. In June, I paid off my student loans with the fund correction. I did it online at my mother's kitchen table because I wanted her there. The balance went from $41,870 to zero. The confirmation email had a plain subject line, "Payment received." I printed it anyway. Then I drove to Casco Community College and asked Mr. Hand to walk with me to the records office. We updated my employee file, my old student file, and the external award correction. He handed me a stamped copy, even though everything is digital now. He understood that I needed paper. The same week, Denise Park sent the final charitable trust closure letter. It stated the fund had corrected the beneficiary record, repaid my loans, removed ineligible board participation, and submitted to monitoring. I put that letter in the orange folder, behind Dad's returned check and Mom's note. The last confirmation came from the library. Mrs. Vale retired at the end of June. Before she left, she gave me locker 42's brass key on a plain ring. "The cabinet is being replaced," she said. "Your mother wanted you to have this." I took it to Mom's house. She was stronger by then. Speech therapy had given her back full sentences, but she used them carefully, like each one cost something. We sat at the kitchen table. The orange folder was between us. The brass key lay on top. "I was afraid you would think we stole you," Mom said. "You should have trusted me with the truth." "I know." "But no," I said, "I do not think you stole me." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Marisol chose us," she said. "She was scared. She loved you enough to let someone else raise you. I used to send letters to the agency for her in case she ever came back. She died in 2009, breast cancer. I kept the letter they returned." That was a new grief, quieter but real. A biological mother I never knew had existed in the background of my life like an unread page. I asked to see the returned letter. Mom gave it to me from the same fireproof box. Marisol had written one note before she signed the adoption consent. Please tell her she was not unwanted. I am choosing the safest arms I can find. I read that sentence until it stopped blurring. The Ashfords had money, lawyers, offices, and scholarship plaques. Marisol had one sentence. My parents had a returned check and a tape. Somehow those smaller things told the truth better. By August, I had made 3 decisions. I would keep the name Lee Mercer. I would use part of the corrected education account to finish my bachelor's degree in information governance, because after everything that happened, records felt less boring and more like oxygen. And I would help Mom turn the front room of her house into a small public archive workshop once a month. Nothing fancy, just a table, scanner, folders, and coffee. People could bring old benefit letters, school forms, medical bills, adoption papers, whatever they were afraid to read alone. Mrs. Vale came to the first one, so did Mr. Han. Nora sent 2 clients who needed help organizing documents before legal appointments. Mom called it Key 42. I told her that sounded like a mystery club. She said, "Good. People open mysteries when they think there might be cookies." The first night, a woman brought a box of her late husband's pension papers. A young man brought student loan letters he had ignored for 4 years. A grandmother brought custody forms from 2003 because her daughter had started threatening to take back the child she had not raised. Mom sat at the end of the table with her cane beside her and labeled folders in her neat handwriting. She looked tired by 9 o'clock, but peaceful. I hung the brass key on a hook near the bookshelf, not as a secret anymore, as a reminder. The truth was never only that Andrew Ashford was my biological father. That fact mattered legally. It corrected the fund. It paid the loans. It forced the people who used my name to stop. But the deeper truth was quieter. Thomas Mercer was my father because he refused $25,000 when he and Mom could barely afford the crib. Elaine Mercer was my mother because she carried a key in her coat while walking into vital records alone, trying to fix a record before her body gave out. Marisol Reed was my first mother because she chose safe arms when she had none around herself. Andrew Ashford was part of my biology and part of my paperwork, but he did not raise me. Elise Ashford was not my enemy because she had money. She became accountable because she accepted a benefit tied to my identifiers and then looked away from how cleanly it arrived. And Colin. Colin was a warning that proximity is not loyalty. He knew our kitchen table, our father's funeral suit, our mother's handwriting, and still let Graham Pike call me containment. That is not family. That is access. People ask whether the money made me feel better. It helped. Anyone who says money does not matter has never watched interest grow on a loan they should not have needed. Paying that balance down to 0 made my shoulders drop for the first time in years. The restricted account means I can finish school without choosing between tuition and dental work. Practical justice matters. But the moment that actually changed me was smaller. It was Mom at the kitchen table, 3 months after the stroke, pressing Dad's cassette tape into my palm and saying, clearly, "He knew you were ours." No trust order could beat that. The final Ashford correction letter is in a fireproof box now. So is the birth record, the college loan statement, the enforcement order, Dad's returned check, Marisol's note, and Mom's first shaky note from the ICU coat pocket. On the front of the box, Mom wrote one line. Lee Mercer, full record. That is the paper proof I keep. The proof I feel is the brass key hanging by the shelf at Key 42, where strangers bring papers they are scared to open, and my mother, the woman my brother called a liar, helps them read the first page. I do not know if I will ever speak to Colin again. Maybe one day he will understand that being paid to keep quiet is not the same as being chosen. Maybe he will not. I am done making my peace depend on his honesty. I never became an Ashford. I became more Mercer than ever. I kept the name that packed my lunches, signed my permission slips, sat beside my hospital bed when I had pneumonia at 9, and returned a check that could have made life easier because I was not a matter to settle. They handled the Reed matter before I could crawl. That was Graham Pike's sentence. Here is mine. They did not handle me. They underestimated the woman who raised me, the father who recorded the truth, the nurse who finally spoke, the college records that still had numbers underneath names, and the state examiner who understood that a scholarship fund cannot call itself charity while using one woman's identity to polish another woman's life. My mother woke up. My loans are gone. The record is corrected. The fund is monitored. The orange folder is no longer hidden. And every month when someone sits at our table and opens a document they were afraid of, I hear that ICU monitor again, steady and stubborn, reminding me that truth does not have to shout to stay alive.